Hey, what's up? This is Gary A. Swaby, and you're now listening to the Powercast, and we will be recapping Raising Kanan, episode 6, and the episode is called Level Up. I'm here with Mr. Richard Bailey Jr. How you doing, Richard?
Doing good, Gary. What's up, listeners and viewers?
What's up, indeed? And I'm also here with Miss Dana Abercrombie. How are you, Dana?
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here.
Good, good. Yeah, I'm also excited, man, because guess what? The streets need a body. Like that song was so catchy. Like it's been in my head like all week long ever since I saw the episode. Like they killed that song for real. So yeah, that was one of the many things that was great about this episode. And we do have some small criticisms, but mostly the episode was great. In my opinion, it's one of those real feel good episodes. So yeah, let's get right into our takeaways for this week, and then we will ask some more questions about what happened in the episode and what's going to happen next a little later. So this week we're going to start with my takeaways. So I'll get right into it. Let me get my notes here. Okay, so the first thing I want to point out is that I'm 100% sure that Lulu will give Kanan a hand me down, and that hand me down will be his jacket because that jacket that Lulu was wearing in this episode, Kanan wore that in the real Power, like the original Power. Like he wore that coat. So I'm wondering if that's like some sort of hand me down situation where he, before he passes away or something, he gives his nephew his jacket. Like, because I swear that's the same jacket that Kanan was wearing as an adult. So yeah, that's just one thing that stood out to me. A little silly, I know, but I couldn't help it, man. And also, yeah, so I definitely wanted to highlight this because this goes back to a comment we had a few episodes ago. So Kanan basically like said exactly what I was saying previously about famous rapping, like and rapping about stuff that he hasn't lived. And 50 actually gave the voiceover and said exactly what I was saying, that most of the rappers are lying. Now, of course, there are rappers who are real and who have been in the streets. Of course, that is the case because we've seen documented incidents that happen of these kind of people, these kind of rappers. But a lot of the rappers, they're fake, or well, they're either fake or they're not really in the streets, but they're surrounded by people who are in the streets, and that's where their authenticity comes from. So yeah, like it was cool to just see him kind of put that into perspective as well, because that pretty much is what Famous is doing. He's kind of rapping the lifestyle that Kanan is somewhat living, basically. And obviously Lulu and Marvin, this is the lifestyle that they're living, but he's just rapping about it. He's a poet that's kind of like, projecting what happens in his environment pretty much. And there's nothing that says that's wrong, because you can just be, like, I'm a writer, we're writers here, and we take what we see and we write about it. We create, material from it. So in a way it's not really a bad thing, but I guess it's only a bad thing when said rapper actually tries to, act like they are that, when they try to push that image that they are, gangster or whatever. So yeah, it was just kind of cool to like, see, 50, he actually said it in his voice, so that was cool to see. And then also another thing that stood out in this episode was I think in one of the first, it might have been the first episode of Raising Kanan when we did our recap. I mentioned that because Howard is a character in this, and we know that Jukebox later on becomes a police officer, a crooked one. So I kind of I had a theory back then that I wonder if Howard somehow influences Jukebox to later become a police officer. But now I think it's going to be the woman officer that Howard works with, because we saw them kind of have an exchange in this episode. And Jukebox, she didn't seem overly hostile towards her. I mean, we know that people don't trust the police in these environments. So she wasn't completely open to cooperating with her, but she also wasn't completely nasty to her. And the officer also kind of saw that Jukebox has this intimate relationship with Nicole, I think. So she kind of caught on to that. So I'm wondering if maybe later on she might kind of play a part in maybe helping Jukebox in some way when some situations go wrong for her. And then maybe that becomes an influence to her to later on become a police officer. So yeah, that was just something that kind of stood out to me in this episode when I saw those two have an exchange. Um, and let's see. Though I made a lot of notes here, but not all of them are takeaways. Some of them we can discuss later. So yeah, I guess my final takeaway is that we see that Kanan, he gives up the fact that Symphony picked him up from the police precinct when he got locked up, and then he tells his mother that what happened and everything, and then we see later on that Raquel and Symphony get into it, and Symphony is obviously apologetic and everything. He's saying he just wanted to help Kanan or whatever, and he wasn't trying to go behind her back. But Raquel is having none of it, and she says, I told you that don't get in the way of me and my boy. Like, that was the one thing I told you. So she wasn't happy about the situation at all. So that's kind of caused a rift between her and Symphony now. And I'm wondering that with the current situation with Howard, I'm wondering if this is going to create an opening for him to kind of appeal to Raquel now, to have more of a serious conversation with her about their past, and then inevitably about him being sick. And we all know where that could lead if they do have that conversation. So that was just another observation I had. I'm wondering if this is going to open some doors for Howard now that there's a rift in that situation between Raquel and Symphony. So yeah, but yeah, that's pretty much it for my takeaways. I know Richard, he has some that he has some stuff that I noticed too, but I want it to come from his mouth because I think he's going to articulate it a lot better than I will. So let's go to you next, Richard. So what are your takeaways from this episode of Raising Kanan?
Well, first and foremost, let's give a shout out to Mr. D'Angelo Barksdale, aka Dean, on this show. Obviously, this is a character you do not want to mess with. And I know we spoke about this when we saw it, that Raquel tried to do the side deal with his bodyguard Smurf. And now you see Smurf is no longer here, living on this earth. So, yeah, but the most interesting thing about that discussion is he said, yeah, that's it. He said that Unique is now going to be paying him 20% more, and that they have completely shut Raquel out of the business altogether. So now that he no longer is a supplier, I'm very curious to see how they're going to get around this, because they still have this whole issue they got to deal with Unique. So yeah, I mean, I must admit that I was wondering when Raquel's bad decision to talk to Smurf was going to turn around, and that was a very quick turnaround time. You saw that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next. In terms of other takeaways for this episode, once again, I think that the writers are doing an excellent job. It seems like very consistently from episode to episode, they constantly remind you of just how powerful and strong Raquel is as a character. Even though she does these ruthless decisions, you understand why she does it. But in this whole episode, in that exchange that she had with the building guy, when all of that stuff there, that was a very it's a very, I don't know if I want to say a shocking turn to see that, to see that guy doing all that type of stuff. But again, she handled the situation exactly as you would expect her to. Um, Made sure to take care of him, and then Marvin later on took him out completely. So again, they're showing that she is a character that always goes above and beyond to do what she needs to do for her business, for her family, so on and so forth. And I like that, because you would think that when they showed her having this altercation with the guy, you maybe make you feel for like a second, maybe there's like a little bit of vulnerability in that. But again, she handled herself very quickly to make sure that she was able to diffuse all of that. So I like that they did that. They continue to show you how much of a strong character she is. So I do think that her confrontation, like her whole discussion with Symphony, I knew that was going to happen because I complained about that the last time we did a show. That was possibly going to be an issue once she did find out the truth. And of course, she reacted and kicked him to the curb. For now, we know that that won't last for long, because we've already seen some of them advertising for season 2, and they are clearly together in the image that they saw with both of them as well as Kanan. So clearly, I think everything will be fine as far as that's concerned. But we'll see what happens. Um, One thing I do want to say, as far as one of my final takeaways for this episode, um, it seemed like a lot of this episode was focused on Lulu. And I know when we saw the preview for this episode previously, it kind of felt like I was wondering, why is Lulu talking to Unique? Because I thought initially he was coming to him about something else that was related to what's going on with them, but it was just to keep them away, to try and keep them away from the event, which unfortunately that did not happen. They were still there. So it seemed like this episode focused a lot more on Lulu, really emphasized the fact, once again, he was the one that's putting all this money into the show, and you saw Crown Camacho really take advantage of that again in this episode, when he had literally everybody, hey, I can't pay for this, go get the money from him, which I thought, okay, yeah, this guy is ridiculous. But yeah, you saw that they had their little, when you saw Scrappy come into the club, because now he's working with Unique's guys, and he walks into the club, and then all of a sudden he gives him a signal to let him know, hey, you need to watch out. And of course, they caught Scrappy later, after that, shortly after that, knowing that he was the one that had helped them out. So I do have something to say about that later. We'll get into that later. But overall, I like this episode because it was a build up to the actual event. Everything that was happening, it felt like it needed to happen. It was necessary to happen. You saw a lot of other characters interacting with other characters for the first time. We saw Nicole show up, and she was interacting with Famous, as well as Camacho and some of the other people that were there as well. But I thought everything, as far as how it was executed, was very well done, because it was all about leading up to the big show, and it didn't really disappoint. There were some things that happened afterwards that I'm pretty sure are going to have consequences for what happens in the remaining episodes of the season. But overall, I thought it was again another solid episode of Raising Kanan, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next.
Oh yeah, some great takeaways, and yeah, we will address some of that stuff shortly, in the questions segment. But Dana, let us know your takeaways from this episode.
All right, so I loved this episode, and it went by just so quickly, and it's not perfect, but it still was very seamless, and I loved it. First takeaway I have to mention was, you couldn't tell me that Famous wasn't going to die in this episode. When they did that whole club scene, and they're just doing that look, and the camera's following him, and you see him rapping about things that he did not do at all. So I was just immediately thinking they was going to kill him, just because, and then Lulu throwing that punch was so smart. I really liked how they executed that. So you had that. You had the fact that Nicole showed up. She knew where she lived. She showed up. She was like, she went through the neighborhood. She's like, I don't care. I'm gonna go see my woman. So she did. That was a really nice reunion because I didn't think that they was gonna come back together again. As you guys mentioned before, because this was something that I missed, she started smoking something that was laced with something. It was a blunt that was possibly laced with crack or meth or angel dust or PCP or whatever drug else that's out there. So I'm not saying that that's the road that she ends up on, that she ends up getting hooked and she ends up being addicted. I hope not. But either way, it would just be really sad because we know that she doesn't exist in the future, but we don't know exactly what happened. Maybe she lives and she has a perfect, a happy life with someone else. So that was one of the things that stood out as well. I also really liked, it was interesting with Omar Epps, with his character Howard, because he was all glum and depressed, and he saw the doctor in the middle of the street, and she's like, "You look terrible." "Yeah, I'm dying. I'm supposed to look terrible," and he's thinking about Kanan, and that being the son, and my brain started ticking and wondering, how is he going to get back into not just the good graces of Raquel, because he never really fell out, but how is he going to convince Raquel to give him the bone marrow, and it may not even work. So we may just, we're speculating and assuming that might happen, but we don't really know. So I was really, it caused me to just really ask questions and wonder, how is he going to attempt to pull this off? Maybe he's just there for the first season and then he drops dead at the end. Maybe he's murdered. Remember, there was like a wonderful way how I pictured it. "I'm your father. I don't care. Bing, bang." So we don't know yet about him, but I really liked how they're setting that up and they're not forgetting about him. Like, there's a lot of characters that they're still bringing back into the fold. We didn't see Nicole, for a couple scenes, and then they put her back in, and everything worked seamless with that. Another thing with Raquel, that incident with the superintendent, I really liked how they pulled that off because you knew exactly what he was saying when he was like, "Oh, just me and you. We can work out something." And I was like, "Ew, really? Oh man, you just take the money and leave." But no, whatever. But it wasn't particularly that scene with the hammer. It was what happened afterwards when she was in the bed. Sorry, they're arresting Raquel right now. Um, but it it was the scene with her in the bed, and she looked like she was crying. It was an emotional moment for her. She almost got taken advantage of in that situation. She was almost assaulted in that situation. So I really liked how they play like this is a hard woman. Look at her. She's doing this, what's considered a man's job in this, drug world. She's a queen pen, but she also has this vulnerability where she may face dangers that other people may not face as well. Not saying that men don't get assaulted, but just saying, you know what I mean? Not being taken seriously, having to use your body for a transaction. That and it also made me think about the scene in the grocery store with the woman who was the wife of the grocery store owner who got her behind beat. I think because she's seen her before. She's not stupid. She knows the domestic abuse that's going on with her. But I wonder if this will trigger her to be like, you know what? This happened to me. I'm gonna get men, not a vigilante thing, but like he's gonna get his just due with her because this kind of set her off. Yes.
Can I just make a comment and say that guy needs to get his ass whooped? Because I was surprised to see how badly he beat up his wife. Like, we saw it before. It was worse this time. And she said, "Oh yeah, I fell." And then Raquel said, "Yeah, you fell into your husband's fist." That was, yeah, that was brutal to see that. But continue.
So it was also that moment that stood out the most. There was another moment. Slightly lost my train of thought, but there was another moment where I'm trying to remember really quickly. I can't remember now. I completely lost my thought.
This about Raquel, or is it about some other characters?
It was about some. Oh yes, Raquel. So going back to when the superintendent was murdered with the nail gun.
Yep.
I like that scene. I kind of expected more of a torture because she was like, torture him. Let him know he's gonna die. So I was like expecting body parts and things. The nail gun was kind of quick, and it was
Yeah,
like a
well,
2-shot thing.
I think like Marvin was kind of having a moment in that
Yeah.
moment, like, 'cause
Oh yeah, he was yelling at it.
yeah, he was kind of venting about how he's treated, in the family and everything, and how he's not taken seriously, and how when he messes up, like he they take, like, they go too far with punishing him or whatever. So he was kind of like treating that guy like his therapist before he killed him, pretty much.
But it made me wonder how like loyal or how long he'll just keep up with this kind of what he sees as abuse and go off on his own or do something that's vindictive. Also, another thing with that scene, I don't know who the apartment is going to end up belonging. That was Raquel's apartment, technically, right? Um,
Yeah.
my thing is they didn't dispose of the body properly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just stuffed it in a wall.
I was concerned when I saw that. I said, I don't know if that's a wise decision, because it's gonna smell. If the body,
It's gonna
it's
smell and rot, and
yeah. And I
so
don't know
like, did he
about
do
that.
it on? Did he do it on purpose?
I mean, I know that my assumption is they could not ditch the body somewhere else because they figure somebody might find it, but it's still, I don't understand why you would have it there, because at some point you're gonna have to take that body out.
Yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe like it's a temporary thing. He left it there for now and until they can move it, because it is. You got to think, like, it's probably like not easy to move a body out of
Oh
a
yeah,
project building,
yeah.
Right.
without somebody seeing. So maybe like it's like a temporary situation until they can, like, maybe do whatever they're gonna do to kind of make it easier to get rid of the body. I don't want to get too graphic here, but you know,
They could have at least threw some lime on there.
lemon
It's like
and
a
lime.
lemon and lime. But no, they didn't even do that. I was kind of like, what is going on? But that scene, the scene with the morgue, was hilarious. Nope, I'm mixing something. Sorry, we're gonna take that back. Um, but yes, so overall, I felt that the show was really strong, and I liked it.
Yeah. Like, I'll say this, it was a very entertaining episode. I loved, the event and everything and how they built up to it and stuff like that. So yeah, it was a great episode. But we do have a small nitpick, and that leads into, our question segment. So I'm just gonna, begin with the first question. And pretty much the first question is gonna be, how will the beef between Raquel and Unique escalate next? But just to add some seasoning on top of that, we see what happens at the end of the episode, where Scrappy, is kind of thrown in front of Raquel and Kanan's house, and he's beaten and bloody and everything, but he's not dead. They didn't kill him. And so the critique is that this is starting to feel like they're just playing and not taking it seriously, because it's like, of course, death is a very wicked and evil thing, but if it's starting to feel like if they're really serious about beefing with each other, like, Scrappy probably would have been dead, especially because he's being, disloyal. He's trying to be a snake. He's trying to be an inside man. He's trying to double cross Unique.
Hmm.
So in that situation, I'm pretty sure he would have been shipped back, to Raquel dead, like fully dead. So it's starting to feel like, are they even taking this seriously? And if they're not taking this seriously, should we as a viewer? It's like it's starting to feel like play gangsters a little bit, just a little bit, because other parts of the show are great, like, and they really do depict the brutality and the roughness of the street life. They do depict it very well in other instances, but in this very instance, it's like, why didn't they just kill him? It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the basis of this question is, how do you think the beef will escalate next? But you can also touch on Scrappy and other parts of the show that involve Raquel and Unique also. So I'll go to you first, Richards. So what do you think about that?
Okay, so here's the deal, and may have to rewatch this again, but
Mm,
he did show that Scrappy did show up on Raquel's doorstep, missing an eye. Um,
mm,
because they said that they said an eye for an eye. So obviously they tortured him, and they decided that they were going to now leave this as a sign to them that, listen, you can't play with us. We know that you sent Scrappy in here to basically try and get intel to see how we operate, and it did not work. Now, one thing about when Unique's other friend found out about Scrappy, when they left the club and they had the conversation, and the guy said, hold up, I know that you playing around on us. They did such a quick cut after that scene. I was like, okay, wow, what happened? And then we find out later on in the episode, shortly thereafter, yeah, so that's what happened. He got tortured that same night, and they left him. But I think, and again, to go to what you said, Gary, as far as the critique, I would have just killed the guy, because the thing about it is this: is that to kill him and then have him show up on the doorstep, I think that would have been much would have sent a much stronger message, as opposed to just torturing the guy and leaving him there. Because the thing is that there can be retaliation at some point. Now, obviously, he doesn't have an eye, so I don't really know how he can retaliate on that level. But the fact that you left him there is still, that's more of a retaliation that they can basically come after you later. So I don't understand why you wouldn't just kill him, especially when they killed a couple of Unique's friends. So yeah, I think that the body count, it would have made sense to kill someone else. But one thing I do notice is that around the same time we saw the images on Instagram of the actors that were coming back for season 2 filming, this actor is also filming season 2. So we know for sure that this guy is going to be totally fine, unless it's a flashback and he does get killed. But I'm pretty sure he'll be around for season 2. But yeah,
Yeah, I do want to touch on that just quickly before you continue. Like,
yeah.
I appreciate that, they have an excellent social media team. 50 Cent himself, like 50 Cent should legit be a social media manager. Like, he is amazing at social media. But I will say that, like, they're doing too much with showing who's in season 2 at the moment. Like, I don't need to know everyone who's going to be back in season 2, because it kind of ruins the suspense a little bit. So
yeah, I agree.
So they should at least hold some of these pictures for later or something like that, or have a set schedule of when they're gonna show these pictures, sort of thing, just so there's
And
some suspense there. But yeah,
and to what you said, we also did see a image of Joey Badass, so clearly he also is still around season 2,
yeah,
which is fine. But I just, yeah, I don't think they should be spoiling that stuff. Obviously, I think if someone's a diehard Power fan and you're following this stuff on social media, then you'll see it. If not, then it's a surprise to you. But yeah, I just kind of feel like, to answer your question, Gary, about how do I think this war will escalate, it feels to me like it's just going to be a very slow game of chess and checkers that's going to keep going back and forth. Because if you're not going to kill off some of the key important characters, then it feels like it's going to be waiting for some type of thing. It's going to be a stalling period. And I guess the whole thing is that they're going to tell you is that, well, we're going to wait to see what this other person does before we retaliate. But the thing is that the next episode, I feel like there has to be some type of retaliation because of what happened with Scrappy. Obviously, if they were successful and they actually killed Scrappy, and let's say they even killed Lulu in this episode, then for a fact, oh yeah, Raquel definitely gonna get some revenge in the next episode. But again, it just feels like they're just trying to be very slow and methodical as far as who is going to do whatever first. So I kind of feel like it's just going to be that way for the rest of the season, because this was episode 6. There's only 4 episodes left in the season. So I just think it's going to be a very slow building thing. Is it possible that somebody major could get killed by the end of the season? Yeah, I think it is possible. I think, like Dana said, Howard may only be around this season. It's no telling. That could be what happens. But I kind of feel like something major has to happen by the end of the season to justify certain things happening. So we have to wait and see what their whole plan is, but it does feel like it's just going to be a slow process as far
Yeah.
as when important getting taken out.
Yeah, because I feel like such a happy and upbeat episode like this should have ended with something huge, like a death or something like that. That's how it typically, should kind of go. But yeah, I mean, it's like, I think one of the issues is that these are great characters in this show as well. Like,
Hmm.
Scrappy, he's a good character, and everyone else. Like, these are such a great cast of characters that I can imagine, as the creators, it's probably hard to kill off a character because they're just so good.
Oh yeah.
I come across this problem in writing as well, where sometimes you can enjoy writing particular characters so well that it's hard to actually kill them off. But at some point, there has to be high stakes. It has to feel like you have to have the Game of Thrones effect where it's like, wow, anybody can go anytime. Like, so this is serious. You have to kind of have that feeling of intensity at some point in time. And we are getting to the later episodes of the season, so something definitely needs to give at some point. But Dana, what's your thoughts on this question of how the beef will escalate?
Okay, so here's the thing. I was upset he got tortured more than the superintendent did. Uh, but I do feel that no one truly wants to go to war unless you're some kind of psychopath, which would be Kanan. And Tommy, but no one truly wants to go to war, and so I don't blame them for having this all out battle and retaliating the very second. I like the fact that he's not dead. I like the fact that they use Scrappy, they beat him to like 1 inch of his life and he has to suffer with the consequences of his actions. I think sometimes living through that experience may be more painful than just killing someone, and it sends a maybe a more powerful message because he's useless now. If you look at it, yeah, it's easy to just kill someone, but the guy who you grew an attachment to, however much a facade it may have been, is now half dead at your door. And that to me, I feel would hit harder emotionally as he's like, "Help me!" in that situation, and he may end up dying later on. Another thing is, stop looking at these Instagram posts from 50 Cent about season 2. The dude is a professional troll. Everyone could be dead by season 2, and he'll still just post up pictures.
It's
That could
it's
be,
not just
Oh
him
well,
though.
no, it's
It's
on
not
it's
just
on the
him.
actual Raising Canaan Instagram also.
yeah.
Yeah,
And who
it's not
runs
just
that?
him.
The
Who's
show.
who's right? And who usually is ahead of that? 50 Cent. Don't think he doesn't know
Oh,
how to
he's not
market
running
something.
that. He's not running that account specifically.
But I think that he would have told someone how to run it. I think that they could all be professional trolls, and that's how they throw people off.
Yeah.
So
But
I'm.
it's even the director of the show, Eve Rivera.
We
He's
can all be
posting
in
stuff like,
cahoots. We can be in cahoots.
of course they're in cahoots, but we're just saying, why are all these people posting,
Because it makes sense. Because that way it throws your audience off. You don't know what's
it
going to
doesn't throw
happen.
us off. Like,
It's
it doesn't
gonna
throw
throw.
us off at
Yeah,
all.
I do think it is because it's very easy that I believe that Lulu is gonna die. I believe that if we all know Omar
Well, we,
is
we haven't we haven't
hopefully.
we haven't seen them on show up on there yet, so that's a possibility.
You know what would be good? Like, okay, Dana, you could be right actually, because what would be a masterful troll is if all of these pictures they're showing are from season one and not
That's what I'm
season two.
saying. It's from season.
Like
We don't
that.
have proof when it was taken or where it was taken. So yeah, I'm gonna just have to go with not believing in pictures because, again, 50 Cent, all of them are throwing everyone off so that they don't know what's going on. You know how you feel that people have filmed fake scenes. Remember Power when Ghost died and we didn't know what was going on and apparently the scene was leaked, but they responded with, "Oh, we filmed multiple scenes,"
And that was a lie.
and that
Yeah,
was a lie. So
yeah.
just don't take everything at face value when it comes to 50 Cent, his crew, stars, power, anything. So yeah. So in regards to that, I think that this is going to be a slow burn. We don't want everything to start happening in season 1. We gotta leave some people alive for season 2. We have to leave some storylines alive as well. So I'm okay with the slow burn theory. Maybe during the finale we'll actually get some, one or two deaths. Um, Also, I think that was mainly it. Just
Okay.
just wait.
I want
Yeah.
to issue a disclaimer that 50 Cent is the truth, and he had the biggest rap album of all time. I just want to throw that in there. You know,
Well, I don't know about
just want
that.
to throw that in there. You know.
Now that's what we call trolling right there.
No, that's
No.
the
We'll,
truth.
we'll, we'll see. We'll see.
But
I hope Dana's theory is correct. Uh,
mm,
we'll see what happens. I don't like when they make the post and they say we are now filming season 2 of Raising Kanan, and it's like, oh, okay. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's Scrappy definitely is now going to be useless. And this means that Raquel, she's going to have to push Kanan in and get him involved because the whole time Scrappy was the right hand man. Well, he was the one of the most loyal people that was helping her out. So you need to definitely someone has to replace him. Why not let it be Kanan?
I don't see her being gun ho and doing that. I see
Oh yeah,
it
you're
more of
right.
him wanting to step up, of
Yeah.
more of him persuading her and going behind her back. I do see that their rift is going to continue, and so he is going to take the place behind her back. Um, So yeah, but I think she is very focused on keeping Kanan out of certain things, which is if you looked with the boyfriend, yeah, they kind of broke up and had that situation.
Hmm.
So yeah, I don't see it be like, here, son, it's your turn. Go
Yeah,
forth
yeah.
and kill.
You're
that
right. You're right about that. Yep,
that
you're right
leads
about that.
into the next question I was going to ask. But real quick, I just want to say that I don't think Scrappy is going to be completely useless because remember in The Wire when there was that guy who he sat on the chair and he yelled 5-0 when the police were coming. Scrappy could do that. He just won't have as good a view because he's only got like one eye to work
Yeah,
with,
yeah, but
so
he
he might
also
not
can't.
see it.
He can't run away though now when Howard's replacement tries to chase after him. So that's the same thing. Oh, you
Yeah.
muted Dana. What did you say?
I was saying, was you talking about Bubbles?
No, that wasn't Bubbles who yelled 5-0. Like there was like a little kid who his only job was to sit there and yell 5-0 when the police were coming.
But he
So
could also kind of
Scrappy.
be like Bubbles. Because if you looked at Bubbles, not to go off on a Wire tangent, remember Bubbles was kind of always there, but no one ever noticed him really? And that's how
Yeah,
he was able to get all of the information and feed it to the cops. And
Yeah.
yeah.
technically, he was the only one at the end who had a happy ending.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Bubbles was a
Well,
great character.
I
Like
miss
I
Bubbles.
might need to watch that show again.
Such a good show.
well,
But yeah, so Dana brought up some good points about Kanan, maybe having to step up and kind of fill Scrappy's role a little bit. And we saw a scene in this episode where Kanan, he saw Marvin and he said, let me show you something, uncle. And then they went for a drive and he kind of showed him like this new area where they could sell where it wouldn't be stepping on, any other crew's territory.
mhm.
And you would have like upper class customers who would be willing to pay double essentially, because I guess they haven't got they can't get access to the product because it's outside of the projects and everything. So the fact that he showed him that, I wanted to ask you guys, do you think Marvin might actually take him up on this and start, selling in that spot? And then could Kanan perhaps, begin to, fill that role of where he's actually the one selling in that area and everything. And he has like his own market essentially. So what do you think about that, Rich?
Well, yeah, he pretty much did. At the end of the episode, he told his boys, "Hey, we're going to be moving the location to the highway." So he pretty much took Kanan's idea, and now because remember, Kanan is not allowed to be anywhere near Marvin, and Marvin's trying to respect his sister's wishes of not having Kanan involved. So yeah, he actually already took Kanan's idea, and we're going to see where that leads from here on out.
So he is going to go behind Raquel's back and have Kanan in on it too?
Oh
You
no.
think?
Well. I mean, yeah. Eventually, it's probably going to lead to that. Yes, because they've already been doing their thing. But the thing is that the idea that Kanan gave him in this episode, when they had that conversation, he told him, "Yeah, you're like kryptonite. I got to stay away from you." But then at the end of the episode, he was telling his crew, the other guys that Marvin works with, we're going to be moving the operation to the highway where their gas station was at, right near the gas station. So he's still going to use Kanan's idea. It's just a matter of, is he going to eventually bring Kanan into that? And I would guess he is, but we'll see how that goes. Because
Yeah,
Raquel is not going to let that happen if she
to
finds out.
me, like the whole point of him, having that scene where where he had to dispose of the body inside the wall, and he would, like, before he killed him, he was kind of venting his frustrations and everything. Like, the whole point of that to me was like, I'm tired of getting in trouble with Raquel and everything. I want to do what I want to do. I want to be in control, kind of thing. So it's like he might rebel and just say, you know what, Kanan, we're gonna do this anyway. Just do whatever you can to not let Raquel know about it or whatever. So he might still go behind her back. Like, he might,
I
you know.
I think what you just said, and then we're going to go to Dana right after this.
Oh yeah, of course.
What you just said is important because in this episode, again, she talks to both. She's hard on both him and Lulu because Lulu was trying to do this stuff with the club, and so pretty much both brothers have other aspirations of stuff that they want to do. They don't want to be tied directly to always having to follow along with whatever she says, and I do think that is going to be an issue moving forward later. I mean, at the end of the episode, she was cool with Lulu and said, "Yeah, go ahead and do your club thing tonight, but tomorrow you need to come back. We need to get back to work." So yeah, but the whole thing about trying to control what they do and keeping them always involved, that's definitely going to, I think, continue to be an issue with both brothers. Continue to be something moving forward.
Right.
Yeah.
So Dana, what did you have to say about that?
No, I wonder when you brought up the fact that the brother is gonna take over the spot, and have Kanan help along. Will that cause like the massive? We already know that that's gonna cause a rift between him and Raquel.
Mhm.
I was wondering if it's going to end up in something that is like a horrible mistake where Kanan's life is really at risk, and it ends up with being with Raquel killing Lulu. Like
Hmm.
I
Killing
just,
Lulu or
I
Marvin?
mean Marvin. Sorry, wrong brother. Killing Marvin. Because I just see she's so adamant. Don't touch my son. She's the only one who seems to be able to can teach him, and she's kind of teaching him little things and not everything all at once. Remember, we had the cooking lesson.
Hmm.
Basically, was like the last time that she sat down and she taught him how to do certain things. So while she doesn't like
Mhm.
it, she's introducing him to stuff, but at her pace. And I wonder, by having him in that situation, by completely disrespecting her wishes, will that eventually end up with Kanan being in grave danger, and she will kind of retaliate against Marvin behind that. Um, but for the question that you did ask, I do see him taking that, and that highway situation and making it his. Also, Kanan, remember from the very first episode, he's very analytical and he's very observant. So he's able to pick out and notice certain things that other people may be oblivious to. So I think that in the long run, he may need Kanan's help with that. You already had like just a quick mention of the highway. What more can this boy offer when you really allow him to do what he wants to do? So I think he's definitely going to use him. He's an asset, and that'll we'd have that more of that family dynamic that'll just end up completely ripping apart.
Hmm.
Mhm. Yeah, and that would be very interesting if Rek ended up taking out her brother. It, and that could very well happen. I believe that could happen.
Well, yeah.
But I don't think it will happen in this season because
No.
the only reason is because, like, I feel like there's still more of a story between Marvin and Jukebox to happen. I think there's going to be a
Yep.
lot of story between those two happening at some point. But yeah, like that, I think that could very well be the case where Rat takes out one of her brothers later on. Um, but yeah, anything else to add before I kind of switch gears and go into another question?
Oh no, I'm curious to hear what the next question is.
Okay, so I have quite a few more actually, but let's get to this one. So with what happened to the building inspector, I wanted to ask you guys because you know, death is a major thing, and death, murdering someone leads to consequences, and you can't just kill like a guy like this, a building inspector. You can't just have him go missing and nobody notices. So I was gonna ask, do you see this tying into some sort of investigation? Will there be some sort of, murder investigation or missing persons investigation that leads to people snooping into, what Raquel is doing at the projects and everything?
All right.
So,
Well, I don't know how involved it will go as far as an investigation, but the thing is that very interestingly, when he had that conversation with Raquel before everything got physical, he said, "Oh yeah, I asked around about you, and that was how I found out that you're a drug dealer." So, any of the people he spoke to that he asked about noticed that he's now disappeared. That definitely could present a problem. I don't know how much they will focus on that in particular, because the building had to get approved. They had to get all this stuff approved before they could move forward. So I kind of feel like, well, if that person is no longer an issue, does everything just move forward as is, or are they going to run into any other issues? But the
mm,
fact that he had that little line where he said, "Oh, I asked around about you. I know what you do," I kind of think that can come back and become a problem. It just depends on if they are going to highlight that within the actual writing and make it a part of the storyline, which I'm not 100% sure, but they have that option. We just have to see if that's what they actually are going to do.
yeah, because I mean, theoretically, all it would take is like, let's say he has a family somewhere or something, and he
Mm-hmm.
goes missing, and they file a missing persons report, and then the authorities contact his place of work, to find out when he was at work last, and the people, the HR department or whatever, they can find out that, they can find out which apartment he was supposed to inspect on the day before he went missing or whatever, right? And then that will lead them right to the apartment. So that's how easily these things can happen in terms of investigation and stuff. So, but in TV shows sometimes these things can happen and it passes and nothing happens. It's never mentioned again. So that's why I have to ask the question because it could be nothing. It could not be anything, but I just wanted to, get you guys' thoughts on if you think this is going to be a thing. So Dana, what do you think? Do you think this will come into play?
Yes and no. I could see it being one of those situations where, if I'm telling you that she's a drug dealer and then he goes missing, I'm going to keep my mouth shut because then that means I'm going to go missing. So if
Um,
anyone, cop or whomever, comes snooping around asking me questions, no habla inglés. I don't know what's going on. I'm minding my business. Leave me alone. Um, so in that regard, I don't see it being a big thing. But also, the fact that you have the cop who is incredibly nosy, and you also have Howard who is trying to get an in with Raquel. So I can see like, hey, I know about the guy, and I went snooping, and he's missing. I wash your hand while you wash my hand. That
Mm-hmm.
situation happening,
yeah,
but I
Yep.
don't see this being like this big criminal investigation report where we pull out the whiteboard and we're clocking and finding out who his manager is. And also, you have to remember, um, they don't leave a paper trail. That's the whole purpose. You're not leaving paper trails, so you're not saying, Superintendent Bob had a meeting scheduled with Raquel at 5:45 in apartment HC.
Yeah.
That's just something that you don't do. So I don't
wait,
really.
who doesn't have a paper trail though?
Neither Raquel and that superintendent was
Raquel doesn't, but the
that
plate like this guy
superintendent.
works somewhere, right?
But the superintendent is shady to begin with. and don't think that that situation with the assault on Raquel was like the first time he ever did this.
What,
Absolutely not.
what
Yeah.
about the building manager? We know he
The
can't say
building
that because
manager
he took the
genuinely
money.
does not care because he took the money and he's
Yeah,
terrified. You know, and you
yeah.
know,
I think the building manager would cover for Raquel just because he's taking the money. Like he's
Yeah.
getting
he's
paid.
scared.
So.
He's like petrified. You can't do this. No, he's fine. He's
And
taking the
plus,
money.
like he's in a compromised position because he kicked people out of the building to
Yep.
to get Raquel in. So
So yeah, so like I said, there's no paper trail on anything. So everything's gonna be either copacetic or a cute little throwaway for Howard to be like, please, can I have that bone marrow? Please, please.
yeah, I think that's a great point you made. That could very well happen
Yeah.
if Howard ends up being the one to look into this and he finds out what went down. That does give him a reason to talk to Raquel, who probably doesn't want to talk to him. So you
Hmm.
know, so yeah, that kind of gives him some leverage in that situation. So yeah, that's a great point. Um, and yeah, so I'll just get to the next question that involves Howard. So um, the question was basically going to be, will Howard approach Raquel about his health in the next episode? Because we see everything that happened in this. I believe Raquel doesn't know he's sick yet, if
Yeah,
I
she
remember
doesn't know.
correctly. Yeah, so I was going to ask you guys if you think in the next episode specifically he's going to approach her and have a heart to heart and talk to her about what's going on, and then maybe raise the question of can he get help with Kanan, which we know is gonna Raquel is gonna be fully against it, but yeah, what do you think about that, Dana?
Um, yes, in regards to him asking Raquel, because you saw that kind of small glimmer of hope, like, what if hypothetically I had a son?
Mm,
Um, so yes, and plus also he doesn't have much time. So him waiting, I don't know, 3, 4 episodes just seems to not make any sense to me. So I can definitely see him approaching Raquel. Also, he knows a lot of things about Raquel that she did that was illegal and dirty, and he knows her life. So I wonder if he could use that as some type of blackmail situation.
mhm.
So that I do. My thing is, I just wonder how he's going to try to convince Raquel, because I don't genuinely feel that she would put her son's life at risk for this guy. And then it's not just that. You're opening up a can of worms by saying you're his father. So it has to be something that he can use that's heavy to leverage this whole situation.
Indeed. And what about you, Reg? You think this could happen in the next episode?
I think it is likely to happen. Maybe you saw in this episode, like there was a little bit of guilt that she felt that she never had Howard be a part of Kanan's life, because she would ask him questions about, you ever think about if you had a father, and it's like Kanan wasn't worried about that because so he was never here, so it is what it is. He's talking about High Post as being the father because that's who he thinks his father was.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like from that perspective, I think it definitely can happen, but I kind of think it's going to be a situation where it's gonna have this whole thing about Raquel finally having another conversation with Howard, and I think Howard, after telling her that, then maybe she might at least let Kanan know this is your father, but she still wouldn't agree to that, to him going through that the bone marrow thing. I don't think she would ever agree to that. And we'll see what happens, because even when Howard asked, because there was a scene in this episode where Howard asked the doctor if I had a son, and he said he's 15. Well, yeah, that age is kind of, it might be a special circumstance, but typically a kid at 15 years old can't really contribute to that. But it might be something that they could consider. But yeah, I do think, yeah, to answer your question, I think, yeah, they had that question, that whole confrontation has to happen. I think the next episode, and again, because Dana mentioned it, I believe, yeah, both of you mentioned, Symphony now is he's on the rocks right now. He's not in good graces with Raquel, so this is an opportunity where she can have that conversation with Howard. But we'll see if that actually happens.
Right. Yeah, great answers, and yeah, I actually can't wait to see what does happen, in this next episode. And so, the final question I have is basically, because we saw a lot of Jukebox and Famous in this episode as they were, getting ready for this big performance and everything. We saw that, Jukebox actually got some last minute nerves and everything, and Kanan was the one to kind of he made up with her because they fell out last week. Well, in the last episode they fell out, and he kind of made up with her and kind of motivated her to get ready for the show and everything, which was a pretty touching scene. I really liked that part. And then we also saw that Nicole came all the way to the neighborhood to support her this week, after what happened in the last episode with her parents, being very angry with their relationship and everything. And then, as we mentioned earlier, Nicole was kind of around a lot of different types of people in this episode. And those dudes from Brooklyn approached her. And then, Famous' sister kind of, she kind of helped her in that situation. But then Nicole was exposed to some drugs which she probably hasn't had before. She probably hasn't even smoked weed before. So I wanted to ask you guys where you see this going next, the relationship between Nicole and Raquel, because we know that they can't go to Nicole's house now. So Nicole has to come and see Raquel if they're going to hang out, So where do you see this going next after what we saw in this episode? And who wants to go first? Dana? Go ahead, Dana.
Okay, so remember how they said Kanan was the first person to know that she was gay?
Mm-hmm.
What if she tells him and he allows her to use the house when Raquel's not there? So that's how we find out that he was the one who knows, which meant that there was some kind of trust that was going on. We had that moment with them in the bathroom that was really sweet, with him, kind of talking her throughout the nerves, and she got on the stage and performed. He was very supportive. Then it was a small moment where like Nicole's like, "Yay, I love you," and on while she's watching whatchamaface Jukebox.
Yeah.
And so maybe he can sense something that was there, and he just knows. And so, as kind of like a truce thing between them, he allows her to go use the house so they can go and meet and do things together. So yeah, that could be one of those situations with that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that could very well be the case. And I do think also that there might be one time where they actually go to Raquel's house, and maybe Marvin comes home and sees something.
I thought that was going to happen in this episode. He was there.
Yeah, because the bus.
Yeah.
I was like getting really nervous when they was on the bus together and they was just making out on the bus. I'm like, what's going on? So yeah.
Yeah, but how about you, Richard? What do you think is going to happen with this relationship?
All right, so I'm gonna apologize to everybody because I'm gonna get a little dark here.
Oh,
I think that in this episode, when you saw her, when she had that smoke that was obviously laced with, maybe you could say crack, cocaine, whatever, I think this is the beginning of the downfall, because in a very Shakespearean way, it would be very ironic if that is what the case is, because we know that whenever Jukebox, as we've known the character, and as she has said in a few episodes ago, when she needed to get money for, she resorted to the stealing. She had said multiple times, I know what the family is into. I'm not into that stuff. I don't mess with any of that stuff, with the selling of the drugs, so on and so forth. So how ironic would it be that her first love ends up getting hooked on this stuff. And I don't know, it's a high possibility that she could OD. And if she does OD, that right there will be a very good explanation as to why Jukebox is such a hardened character on the regular Power show, because this is someone she cares about. Uh, for her to lose her to the very same thing that she has tried to stay away from, even though her family is in that business, that'd be very tragic. But it's something that I definitely think is possible now that they've introduced this, because from the very beginning, when she was getting close to Nicole, we were already speculating and wondering, so why isn't this character a part of her life in the future show? And just because something bad has happened, something bad has happened, but it's a matter of what? Because we thought, it could just be that she's just in the crosshairs whenever this war pops off between Unique and Raquel. Maybe she happens to be somewhere they happen to take her out, which is a possibility still. If you take the angle of somebody, however, getting hooked on drugs, that is a very dangerous angle to take, but it's also very tragic. You and I have seen this, Gary, on Snowfall with Melody, and how that character, the character that Franklin always cared about, this character and all this other stuff, then to see her get hooked on this and he's still selling it, it's a real messed up type of scenario. But I think that is a high possibility of how they take out that character. I don't want to see that happen because we've seen it a couple times in a couple different shows, but it definitely is the perfect way to describe why she is such a hardened person now. You can have her end up getting shot in a shootout between Unique and Raquel's, crew. That can happen also. But I think it's more tragic if it has to do with the drugs, because Jukebox has said, I don't do what my family does. I try to stay far away from that. So it'd be kind of messed up if that's what eventually ends up killing Nicole.
I want her to die in her arms.
Oh man, that'd be very sad to see.
It'll explain why she's a crooked cop. I mean, what if she, somehow she gets the wrong batch from, I don't know, someone who I don't know, but I just think that if she dies in her arms, it plays up more dramatic. It's more traumatizing that way.
Yeah.
We know that she ends up becoming a crooked cop.
And you know what would be even worse? Is that if Unique became her supplier, that would make it even worse.
Whoa.
Because just imagine, because again, they have all the market control now. They're going to be paying Dean 20% more to supply to only them. So just imagine how messed up would it be if he and his boys became her supplier and they were the ones giving her drugs. That'll make it even more twisted.
And that's why she ends up becoming a crooked cop.
Yeah. That's
I do really want to see what makes her, go down that direction. I think it's going to be multiple things. Like the Nicole thing definitely could be one thing, and then I think that conversation she had with the lady cop, detective. I think that might lead somewhere too. So, but I do want to see what really makes her, go down that pathway to being a crooked cop. I want to see that. I want to see that too. I just was going to say, though I hate to say it, the Nicole character is probably not going to survive, because this is the only character, when you think about it, that truly believes in her, pushes her to do, all the other stuff. Yeah, you can say that Lulu supported her when she got into the show, but Nicole is the only one that understands her and has been there for her since this show started, for the most part, from what we have seen. And she understands her because they have that bond, that they also are in a relationship. So that's why I say it definitely feels like that is going to contribute to her downfall. But like you both said about her making the turn to become a crooked cop, yeah, I believe that y'all had a very good point that the rest of that could be by the influence of those other characters. So we have to see how they bring it together. Yeah. Indeed. Yeah, some great theories overall. I can't wait to see, what the people think also. So make sure you guys are all leaving your comments, liking the video, subscribing, sharing, and everything of that nature. Because we do want to hear some more takes on everything that has happened today. Was there anything else that either of you wanted to bring up from the episode before we get to our shout outs and everything?
No, just everything is going to be a downfall from now on. Because, you had Nicole, her last words was essentially, I don't want to be with anyone else but you.
Yep.
Everyone kind of had a happy ending-ish. Even Joey was kind of happy at that ending with him too, and we all know what happened with Famous. So everyone had their happy time. It's gonna go downhill now.
Famous sounds like Fat Joe when he raps.
Oh, really quickly. I forgot the guy. Remember the guy who is basically it was Kim Porter's son, who was in the episode.
What, the Brooklyn dude?
The Brooklyn dude who was always there.
Oh yeah.
P. Diddy's son.
Oh really?
Well, not his biological. His biological father is Albie. How does it go? Albie Shore is his biological father. His uncle is Christopher Jackson, and Christopher. Christopher is it Christopher Jackson? I'm terrible, but his father is Christopher. Remember in New Jack City?
Yeah. I know.
Remember the guy who goes, "Don't wake me."
Yep.
Him. I dream. That is his uncle.
Okay.
And so in that moment, he looked just like him with the big sweater. Yeah, I was like, yes.
I was wondering why that character, something about him stood out. That make a lot of sense.
The son of Albie Shore, yeah.
They really made him stand out.
They pay homage to a lot of these older shows and stuff like the movies. Yeah, that's cool. I did not know that. So, see?
Mm-hmm. So that was all I was thinking of the whole time. I was just waiting for him to go, "Don't work me." I'm dreaming. Girl, I'm dreaming. Sorry. So, yeah. But no, overall for me, I thought the show was very good. It's a slow burn, but like in a good way, where you're not like bored. Things are happening, but we're not getting that big, Omar shootout right away. So I liked it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Anything else, Rich?
Oh no, I thought it was an excellent episode. A lot of things happen, a lot of developments happen, and we did see your boy Kanan lost his virginity. So I will not be surprised if we hear at the end of the season finale, "Hey, Davina, to Kanan, I'm pregnant," and Kanan's going to say, "Wait a second, that can't be true. We use protection." We'll see what happens, but a lot of things happen in this episode. It makes me very excited to see what's going to happen next week. Obviously, we didn't see the preview, so look forward to seeing the preview when it airs on Sunday.
Yeah, and I do want to point out that like when Power first came out, there were a lot of people that was saying Sean looks older than 50 Cent. Like Sean's actor looks older than Kanan. So it could very well be the case that he has him very young. So that does make sense, because if you look at Sean and Kanan, they do both look young in Power. So it makes sense that he has him very, very young. So Davina could be Sean's mother, and she could be pregnant now. So yeah, and I guess the only thing I wanted to highlight was that another thing that 50 and the Power team have been posting on social media is the fact that Power Force has finished filming officially. And we know that is going to air the first quarter of 2022 next year. So yeah, we have that to look forward to. What was you gonna say?
And they also finished filming book 2. Also, they did a post about that this week, and that will be coming back on November 7th.
Right. Yeah. So Power is going to be on all year soon. So exciting times. Yeah, and then there's also BMF coming. So. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
2 thumbs up for that. So yeah, let's get straight into our shout outs and then, end off the show. So Dana, you got any shout outs?
Yeah, just shout outs to everyone who has been listening and who has supported us always. So thank you so much for that.
Cool. And Richard?
Yeah, I definitely want to give a shout out to everybody that's been checking out all of the shows. And I especially want to give a shout out to everybody that left a comment last week. I like seeing people commenting their opinions on the episodes as well. Please continue doing that because we like the engagements. And as you can see, I answer some of the stuff that I do see when people say it in there as well. So yeah, please continue doing that because I'm very curious to hear what everyone thinks of the actual shows to see if they agree or disagree with some of the points that we made as well. So thank you for continuing to support us.
Yeah, indeed. Big shouts to all of the, the supporters, the people who enjoy listening to the show, even the people who listen, on Spotify or iTunes or whatever, but don't necessarily comment because our analytics show that there are a lot of those people out there. So big shouts to all of you. We appreciate, all the support and the just your long-term listenership. Basically, we appreciate it all. And all the comments also that we got on the last episode. I'm looking forward to more, this episode because I really want to hear some more thoughts. So yeah, just shouts to everyone. Definitely, check out some of the other content we have on the channel. Also, we have Walking Dead content. We have Dana's interviews. We have some stuff for the gamers as well. We recapped some events that happened recently. So there's something for everyone, on the channel. We also have wrestling content as well, and that's kind of blowing up again, CM Punk and everything. So go check out go check out what we have on the channel. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And we will be back next week, of course, to cover episode 7 of Raising Kanan. And everyone take care of yourselves. Be careful on those milk crates that everyone is stepping on this milk crate challenge thing. I know Dana's been doing that, so be careful, everyone.
Uh-oh.
But yeah, we will see you next week. Peace out, everyone.